Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1234, written by I Am No Man When Pizza Disappears. I was at home alone when I was about 14. Ordered a pizza. Half an hour later, I see a kid on a tricycle riding up my driveway towards my door, followed by a man with a box. I automatically assumed it's the pizza, not really wondering why he had his kid with him. The pizza place is close, so I thought maybe they walked. I go to the door and wait for them to get closer. Nothing happens. No knock. Look through the peephole and nothing. Open the door and look around to see nothing. First and only time in my life I've gone outside and done the stereotypical look around you see in the movies. You know, the movie where you're yelling, "Go back inside, idiot," on the screen. My house has a driveway that leads to a sidewalk and then to our door. I saw them maybe 10 feet back from my door when I went down, and then they were gone. I have no idea what happened or what I saw. They weren't anywhere down the street, they were just gone. Still can't explain that. Case notes file 1234. When pizza disappears. It's through the looking glass. In this case, quite literally through your own home's window, you saw a parallel world where indeed that delivery was being made by someone walking their son, in tow on a tricycle. If the pizza place is nearby, then it's not that crazy. Sounds like a very cute neighborhood. I miss when kids could ride bikes anywhere. That was me, just going around, walking, riding bikes with friends. Go out at 9 in the morning and back at before sundown. That was the rule. These days that'd be kind of a death sentence with how fast everyone drives. I don't really like car dependency. And I'm not actually against cars. I think they're great, they're important, especially in a country the size of the US, but I think cities and towns could be designed much better where cars inside the city go very slowly and there's much more pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure, so then you can enjoy yourself and it's also much better for business. When you have these stroads everywhere, it's gross, you can't even cross them, and it's also extremely weighty on the soul. If you try to walk, even if there's a sidewalk, if you're lucky enough to have a sidewalk, hearing those cars, the tires going down on the road very fast, it's the exhaust, everything is just unpleasant. Better designed towns could be a way against that. But still having cars everywhere, just, if you want to travel across the country, you can, not needing to get a bus or anything. Although I do think trains are nice, if we had better train infrastructure too. You can get some very nice views on that. Case file number 1235, written by Anonymous. The chilling encounter on Wilsonville Road. Okay, I'll share. I was 12. It was sometime in October 2002. I played softball as a kid, which dragged on from the summers into Sundays of fall. Oftentimes, my softball games were in Newburgh, an hour-long drive from Portland, my hometown. My dad would often drive me at 7 a.m. in order to make it on time. We always drove down to Wilsonville and then took Wilsonville Road to Newburgh to beat traffic. One morning, we were driving along the road, an extremely familiar path at this point, and emerged through a grove of trees and forests into fields and orchards. It was 7:40 a.m. or so. An overcast day and a chilly morning. There weren't any cars on the road but ours. At the edge of the grove, my dad and I saw a man cross the road from right to left and stepped out into our lane. He was dressed in jeans and a red flannel shirt. He looked like a farmer. Dad slammed on the brakes and I threw my hands on the dash, lowering my head in preparation of the hit. When I looked up a fraction of a second later, there was no one on the road. My dad had this blank look on his face. He didn't say a damn word about it, even though he stopped the car. We sat there in the road for a minute or two, looking for this person, before he drove off. We didn't hit anybody. There was no one there. I asked what had happened, but he said nothing for the rest of the trip. I know there's no way a person could have just run off the road on either side. To the right was a steep uphill embankment that led to a shallower hill. It was a bit of a climb to get up there. We would have seen him scramble. To the left was a steep downhill embankment leading to a couple houses and covered in thick ivy and ferns. The person would have had to run across the road and somehow shimmy down the bluff in half a second. There's no way. I asked my dad about it today, and he said it was a tree stump. Yeah, Dad, I can't explain it either. Case notes of file 1235. The chilling encounter on Wilsonville Road. So again, multiversal peering, I'd wager. Especially while driving at high speeds, there's more units of space-time crossed over, which for whatever reason leads to higher propensity of peering across the multiversal realm, like flipping channels almost. And of course there's space-time portals, but that one makes more sense. There are portals that are in the actual universe you're driving through. But yeah, I'm convinced that it has something to do with isolation inside of a metal box. At speeds, it creates some wonky effects locally for the people inside of it. Very cool, but very bizarre. Get some kind of Faraday cage going on, but not really, because there's still signals that pierce it. You can still make calls and everything when you're inside a metal moving box that is a car. It's not a Faraday cage, but it's still isolated enough, I guess, that it creates some kind of effect. Bonus file written by Derporelli. This ghost just wanted to play ping pong. I had just arrived at a crowded frat party back in college in a large, old frat house with some friends from the dorms. I was leaning against the doorframe of an empty room, chatting with one of my friends and waiting for a turn on the beer pong table. Only a few feet away were dozens of college kids mingled. In the empty room, there was another regulation-sized ping pong table with cups filled with water set up at both ends for playing beer pong. But since the room was smaller, no one really used that table since it was so cramped in the little room. As my friend and I were chatting, all of the cups on both sides of the table fell to the floor, spilling all of their water. We thought that maybe there was someone hiding under the pong table, just fooling around and bumped the table, causing the cups to spill. As we looked around the room to see what caused the cups to fall, the entire pong table flipped onto its side and crashed into the wall about a foot off the ground as if some huge person got pissed and threw the table. Other than my friend and me standing in the doorway, the room was completely empty, and nothing was attached to the pong table, like rope or string or something that someone could have possibly used to manipulate the table. I didn't see any mist forms, feel eerily cold, or have any weird or negative feelings that people say they feel when a ghost or spirit is present. We were the only two people at a huge party to actually see what happened, but everyone heard the crash. After explaining to the president of the frat what had happened, he didn't seem fazed at all. Turns out, creepy crap like that happened a decent amount at that house, although it was usually little stuff like doors opening and closing, or small objects being misplaced or knocked to the floor. I like to think I'm a rational person. I never believed in the paranormal before that had happened. Case notes for the bonus file. This ghost just wanted to play ping pong. Truth is that all the signs of the supernatural are triggered effects from the spirit, so they don't have to happen. If the room feels cold, an energy siphon effect is enabled because the spirit is low on energy. I think the mist forms when they're attempting to break through the thin membrane between worlds, and then if they do, they don't have to go back right away, so that's why you don't always see fog if you see a spirit, but if you do see the fog, it may represent them trying to break on through. Though this being an old frat house, well, this spirit sounds like it's very angry, so it could be inferred that something nasty happened there in the past. You know, we like to think of ourselves as civil, and we are to an extent, especially now in 2023. But even a century ago, life was more brutal than we can appreciate from simply reading about it. To experience it, I wouldn't want to. A lot of these spirits are just reliving those moments, and it's not really surprising why they'd be angry. And now time for the facts of the day. Black holes have theoretical opposites, white holes, where a black hole is an area beyond the event horizon where it's often said that nothing can escape it because the escape velocity is too high. And that's true, but it's more than that. A black hole, if you're inside the event horizon, as you approach the event horizon, all vectors of space itself and time diverge away from the entrance where you came in from. And after you cross the event horizon, there is no more outside. For all intents and purposes, you're in a new universe, and there is no outside that universe. Doesn't matter how fast you move, all vectors of space-time point towards the singularity. Even if you somehow went faster than light, there's no outside to travel to. It's pretty trippy. And then of course it's theorized that maybe when you reach the singularity at the center, it formed a white hole where things are expelled, or can get expelled. If of course you weren't spaghettified by the gravitational effects, where there's more gravity at your feet than at your head, so you're stretched constantly until you become this string of atoms. Now, depending on how big the black hole is, the bigger, the less effect this has, and also depending on rotational speed, there are large enough black holes where theoretically you could cross into the event horizon and approach a singularity without being spaghettified. And if you could do that and then reach it and there's a white hole, then maybe you emerge somewhere else. It's basically a wormhole through space-time. And maybe even through the multiverse. So you emerge not just in a different place, but also a different universe altogether. All of that is just theory, but it's interesting theory. And second fact, the sun's mass takes up 99.86% of the solar system. So it's again, trying to consider just how small we are. Not in a bad way. It means there's so much space for all of us to expand into. And the sun, there's ways to siphon away mass from it. So if we need a lot of hydrogen, well, we got plenty available. So there's tons of projects we can do in the future if we get automation up enough. I mean, there's already no limit to what we could do and what we could build. So I'm very excited to go to the moon, to Mars with Elon Musk, see how that goes. It's going to take a long time. There's going to be challenges we don't even know about yet, but we'll get there. It's a very exciting time to be alive. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.